Right now, I'm proud to present a wonderful congressman from North Carolina, Mel Watt. Now, let me sort of do it this way. Mel Watt is a most valuable player. In many respects, he's the most valuable player. Now, he earns that award every year when he plays in the congressional softball game. Mel Watt, they don't mess with Mel Watt much because he used to be a professional baseball pitcher. You know, he can throw one at your head. They never admit it. Dust you off, so to speak. But Mel Watt is a tremendous leader. He is a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Chapel Hill, a published member of the Yale Law Journal. He is a lawyer, a small business owner, and a public servant. I was the lieutenant governor of this state and the president of the Senate when he was in the state Senate. And I want to tell you, when you're up there in front of those 50 people, months on end, you find out who does what and who's got it up here and who really means business. And there was not a stronger, and we had great members of that Senate then. We didn't have a stronger one in there than Mel Watt. He knew what needed to be done. He is fearless, and he has made a great member of the Congress. Of course, as you know, he comes from Charlotte. His district goes all the way. Do you go to Greensboro yet, Congressman? All the way up to Greensboro. Used to come all the way down to Durham. He's almost a senator in terms of the breadth of his district. Now, this man, here's a man that cares about people. And here's a man who will stand up and fight for them, and he isn't afraid of anybody. We need leaders like that. I'm very proud that he's the newly elected chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and all of us watched last week as he went in and led that group in meeting with President Bush. And I hope there will be a lot of those meetings because it'll be good for both of them and all of us. We are in all of this together, as you well know. So, we're proud to have the most valuable player here. We're proud that he's from North Carolina. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a great, courageous congressman from North Carolina, Representative Mel Watt.
Good morning. Let me get rid of some of this, maybe. No, my speech is not that long. It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and I know the governor of Tennessee's got to get back, and I got to get out of his way. So I'll try to keep us on schedule so that he can get back to Tennessee and I can get back to Washington because we've got a busy week this week trying to digest the president's budget, proposed budget. Let me start by, without going into the details of how Governor Hunt was introduced last night. How many of you were there last night? So most of you were there, so you heard the introduction. I'll just say that I second all of those emotions and not dwell on that further, since if I took off in that direction, I'd be there for quite a while. And it might be more interesting than the speech, but probably not as informative to you since you heard that last night. And the First Lady is here. I appreciate her being back this morning. I want to thank my wife for being here. She's over on this side. there's more to that story than just the introduction. There was some question about whether she was going to show up here this morning to hear my speech. There was no question whether she was going to show up last night to hear Bill Clinton's speech. I think that was the draw. This was not the draw this morning. I'm also honored to have my brother here. He says he's my younger brother, but you can judge that for yourself when he stands up. Dr. Graham Watt. He's actually working on a part of the health care problem for the state of North Carolina. They don't call it health care. I understand Secretary Fain was here yesterday and talked about some issues. My brother works in the workforce development side of those issues and trying to keep people employed, which I think is part of the battle toward good health care, because most people are insured through their workplace, and the more people we can get employed, the better off we are. I am not quite sure how to follow President Clinton. I thought I might just start free-flowing like he was doing last night and pull a little concept from here and one from there and then bridge it back at the end. But nobody can do that quite like President Clinton can do. And so I said, that's not the answer. And I contemplated just getting up and saying, well, you know, President Clinton said it all last night, and sitting down. That probably would be sufficient for those of you who heard the outstanding presentation that the President made last night. It was an outstanding demonstration of a president who really understands the issues in ways, and that's not a backhanded jab at the current president. Don't take it that way. It is just a simple statement of fact that I'm not sure we've had a president throughout the history of this country that had as much grasp of the facts and information and ideas about how to solve problems and make our country better. So it's a treat on one hand to be following President Clinton. It is a burden on the other hand because he has raised the expectations so high. I am honored, at least since January 4 of this year, to be chairing the Congressional Black Caucus, and I assume that is how I went from being on a panel yesterday to being the keynote speaker this morning. Because when the invitation was extended for me to participate in this program, it was to be a part of yesterday's panel. Judging from who was on that panel, I'm glad I got the opportunity to do this instead, because I'm not sure I wanted to argue with either Gingrich or Senator Breaux on any of the issues that they were talking about yesterday. I think I am probably better equipped to do what you have asked me to do, and that's to talk about the Congressional Black Caucus agenda in the healthcare area and some of the ideas that we have. And I want to set the stage for you by telling you that 2 weeks ago tomorrow, on January 26th, I think it was, I led what I think up to this point in history would be a historic gathering at the White House. 41 of our 43 members of the Congressional Black Caucus went to the White House to meet with President Bush on January 26th, just a couple of weeks ago. It was historic because this is the largest Congressional Black Caucus our nation has ever had. 43 of us representing different districts, different configuration, different states, different philosophies, and I have started to appreciate the challenge of trying to pull all of those divergent personalities and ideas together and to present them in a great form. Now, most people don't realize that the first invitation to meet with President Bush actually came a month or so before the meeting actually took place. He had his people call and invited us to meet with him on January 5th of this year. I had been or was expecting to be sworn in on January 4th, and we had scheduled a retreat meeting all day on January 5th. And we got this invitation from the President of the United States saying, we'd like to meet with you at 10 o'clock on January 5th. And so my first role as the incoming chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, it turned out, was to say no to the President of the United States. We didn't say it in a negative way. We said, Mr. President, we have been trying to meet with you now for 4 years, and we don't want this to sound like we don't want to meet with you, but we actually have more important things to do on January 5th, because to come to a meeting with you, even as the President of the United States, and I said this to the press, is really less important to us than talking about and developing an agenda that we would like to present to you when we do have the opportunity to meet with you. As I said it to the press, I have no ego investment in meeting with the President unless we are meeting about the Congressional Black Caucus's agenda. And on January 5th, we didn't really have an agenda for this 2 years. So we took the time on January 5th to start developing an agenda. We did the retreat, and we developed an agenda that I just think is just a powerful, powerful agenda. And by January 26th, I had taken all of the ideas that my colleagues had given me in that retreat meeting, and we had reduced them to writing. We had circulated drafts to all of our members. We had gotten feedback. We had done edits. We had updated based on the feedback we got. And finally, on January 26th, we rolled out an agenda, and the President of the United States was the first person outside the Congressional Black Caucus to have that agenda presented to him. And I'm taking time to describe this because I think it is so important for you to understand that the agenda we coalesced behind deals with closing and eliminating disparities that continue to exist between African American citizens and white American citizens in every single aspect of our lives. It is an agenda that is as old as our presence here on this continent. It is an agenda that is as old as the existence of the Congressional Black Caucus, and it was founded in 1979 by 13 courageous members of Congress at that time. And it is still our agenda because the job isn't about to be completed. And that's why when we walked into the White House, we knew exactly what we wanted to talk about. Imagine this. We walk in and there are 41 members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We fill up a room finally for the first time in the White House. People couldn't even get around the table because there were so many of us. And I sit beside the President of the United States. And the President was cordial enough to allow me to conduct this meeting. We had asked them for the opportunity to present our agenda. And the day before we met with the President, I had called together 12 people in our caucus, and I said to them, I don't want you talking about your agenda. I don't want you talking about your district's agenda. This is a meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus with the President, and if you are not prepared to talk about the Congressional Black Caucus agenda, I will not recognize you. It's that simple. This is about our agenda. And the agenda is so critical because if you take every challenge that President Clinton described last night and multiplied in some cases times 2, in some cases times 3, in some cases times 13 or 15, you will understand the magnitude of the problem for African Americans in this country. There is a disparity that exists in every single area of our lives, and I couldn't find but one where we compared favorably with white Americans. And I said it to the President. I said, Mr. President, there are disparities in every area of our lives. And the only one where I could find that we compared favorably was in the area of suicides. We are still committing suicides less than white people in this country. And that's a favorable disparity. But on every other criteria I could find, there were disparities. Now imagine this. I walk in, I'm sitting beside the President, he's here, I'm here, and we start to talk to him about these disparities. And I recognize Shaka Fatah from the state of Pennsylvania. And he describes to the President disparities that exist in the education arena in our lives. He says that 39% of African American fourth graders could read at or above a basic reading level compared to 74% of white fourth grade students. And 39% of African Americans, eighth grade students, performed at or above basic math levels compared to 79% of white students. And he kept going down this list, and then I recognized Major Owens from New York, and we rolled out a list of policy things in the education area that would help to close those disparities between African Americans and white Americans. And then I turned to the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Elijah Cummings, and he started to describe the disparities that exist in the health care area. I bet you were wondering when I was going to get to the main subject that we're here to talk about. And he started to describe those disparities, and he said, Mr. President, in December 2004, the American Journal of Public Health reported that 886,000 more African Americans died between 1991 and 2000 than would have died had they had equal health care to white Americans in this country. Think about that. 886,000 more people died in a 10-year period because they didn't get equal health care in this country. He said that African Americans comprised 12% of the population, yet they represented 19.6% of the uninsured people in this country. He said that black men experienced twice the average death rate from prostate cancer. In 2002, the African Americans' AIDS diagnosis rate was 11 times the white diagnosis rate, 23 times more for women than for white American women. And that African Americans are 2 times more likely to have diabetes than whites, 4 times more likely to see their diabetes progress to end-stage renal disease, and 4 times more likely to have a stroke. Every area of our lives, there is a negative disparity. And let me tell you, the president was sitting there listening to us, and I said this to the press, so this is not something that should come as a surprise to you. At a point in time, somewhere in the presentation of these disparities, you could start to hear the president grunt and groan as if he were being hit in the stomach. And that was entirely our objective. We wanted to hit him in the stomach, and that's why I came today to hit you in the stomach with this information. And we can't solve these problems without some help. And then we rolled out, I called on Dr. Donna Christensen, a medical doctor, member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the only black female doctor, perhaps the only female doctor that's ever served in the United States House of Representatives from the Virgin Islands. And she said, Mr. President, what we need and what the CBC agenda will support is a program that emphasizes and moves toward universal access and affordability and prevention, that provides meaningful coverage for prescription medications to every American, and that increases African American representation across all healthcare areas, because despite the fact that we are 12% of the population, we have only 2.9% of the doctors, 9.2% of the nurses, 1.5% of the dentists, 0.4% of the healthcare administrators, and so there's a disparity in that area too. There is a disparity in every area that you can identify. And I'm almost through because I know I'm running out of time. I want to frame the extent of the problem, because I agree so much with where President Clinton got to last night. He couldn't have stated what we said in the Congressional Black Caucus agenda any clearer than we said it. And this is what I said to the president at the end of the meeting. I said, Mr. President, the Congressional Black Caucus may have a reputation for being all Democrats and for judging you on a partisan political basis. I said, we didn't create the fact that we are all Democrats. If Republicans would elect somebody black to the House or the Senate, we would welcome them in our caucus. We didn't create that. We all are committed Democrats, and I don't shy away from that at all. But when you come to the Congressional Black Caucus, and I'm going to give you 3 opportunities to do it. You can do it today while we're sitting here in this meeting. You can do it in your State of the Union address, which is coming up next week, or you can do it in your budget, which you are going to submit to Congress 3 weeks from now. And when you do, we are not going to judge you on partisan political criteria. We are going to judge you on the extent to which you address and your policies will close these dramatic disparities that exist between African American citizens and white American citizens. And the reason that we will do that, I said, Mr. President, I couldn't say it better than just to read to you the conclusion that we give to you. The conclusion of our agenda. And I'm going to sit down and, well, I can't sit down. I can't sit down without telling you that he didn't embrace our agenda at the meeting. That was fine. I excused him. I said, hey, you gave us this time to present it to you. It's 8 pages, 9 pages long. I wouldn't embrace everything that I'd heard today if it was the first time I was hearing it either. But next week, we're going to be expecting to hear some things from you in the State of the Union address. And 2 weeks from now, we're going to be expecting you to put it in your budget. And I regret to advise you that he disappointed us on those 2 occasions also. Hot off the press, just might as well read it. Additional information, yeah. President's budget calls for $137 billion in cuts over the next 10 years in mandatory programs, with much of that coming from Medicaid. How are you going to close these disparities as opposed to widen them if you don't put resources into them? How are you going to close these disparities unless you make up the poverty differential that the president talked about last night? How are you going to close these disparities when unemployment is 2 times in our community? Statistics just issued this week, more than 2 times unemployment in our community than in the white community. It's all about interdependence. Isn't that what President Clinton said last night? I'm going to read the conclusion, and then I'm going to sit down, because I know the governor's got to come and get back to Tennessee. Our conclusion of our agenda says this. It says the mission and objective of the Congressional Black Caucus and this CBC agenda continues to be improving the condition of African American people. However, the CBC has never sought to limit the benefits of its endeavors to African Americans. Indeed, the members of the CBC firmly believe that the priorities outlined in this agenda will benefit all Americans and will make our country better for all people. We invite all Americans to join us in the quest to remove disparities and barriers that increase the burden and often make it impossible for individuals to achieve their full potential. African Americans will be better for it, and America will be better for it. Thank you so much.
Well, Congressman Watt, you saw that standing ovation, and we are thankful to you for what you said and what you're doing, and for your fearless leadership for what people need and what Africa